probably the biggest discovery in IFS is that in addition to all these parts I've been describing, and actually just beneath the surface of them is what I'm going to call the self with a capital S, which is different. And I just stumbled onto that discovery because as I was having my client interact with these parts, and once I learned they aren't what they seem, and my goal became to have my client have a decent relationship with their parts, uh, I would try to set that up, and I would have these inner dialogues happening. And I would find that I might start out maybe having a client try to talk to her critic, but get curious about it and learn what it's trying to do for her. And as I'm doing that, my client is furious with the critic suddenly. And as a family therapist, that was familiar because you work with families, you have maybe a teenage girl trying to talk to her mother who's critical. And suddenly the girl is furious with the mother. And we were taught to look around the room and see if somebody isn't covertly siding with the girl against the mother, and you often find the father is. So you get him to move back in the room out of her line of vision, and things settle down, and the girl has a decent conversation. They have a decent conversation. Maybe the same thing's happening with this inner system. Maybe as I'm trying to have this dialogue between my client and her critic, a part who hates the critic has stepped in and is doing the talking. So I began asking, could you find the part that hates the critic? And could you get it to just relax in there and give us a little space to get to know the critic for a few minutes? And to my amazement, clients would say, okay, it did. And then I'd say, how do you feel toward it now? And it'd be an entirely different answer. Whereas they hated it, now they're just curious about it. I just want to learn more about why it does this. Or if they're terrified of it, step back. I'm calm. I'm not afraid of it, and I want to get to know it. It was like just pulling out some of these parts, this other person would pop up. And I would do the same thing in other clients. And it was like the same person popped up with the same qualities and knew how to relate to these parts in a healing way, to the point where often I could kind of get out of the way and clients would just start to do the work. And now, 40 years later, and thousands of clients later, and thousands of therapists and coaches using this all over the world, we can safely say that that self with a capital S is in everybody. It's an essence inside of everyone. And once it is released by simply getting parts to get out of the way a little bit, it can come forward and it knows, first of all, it can't be damaged, because I've done this with people who have horrible, horrible histories, and it's the same self that pops out of them. And it does know how to heal, both internally and externally. So in terms of leadership development and things like that, you don't have to teach your executives compassion. You just have to help them release it because it's in there. So it's a bit of a different paradigm from many others. So it becomes a kind of internal leader, external leader. Uh, yeah, this is all about what we call self-leadership.